How powerful is the CX16 Part 2? Graphics. However, before we get into number 2, I need to make an errata for the first video. I said the 68000 has a 32-bit address bus, which is true but not true. It has 32-bit address registers, and internally it uses 32 bits, but the 68000 chip, as opposed to the 68000 series, itself only exports 24 address lines, and hence it is limited to 16 megabytes. But anyway, on to part 2. Now with this one, caveats aside, because every single feature, aspect, ratio, detail of every single one of these graphics chips comes with asterisks, stars, crosses, double crosses, and then the entire Greek alphabet of limitations, special cases, yada yada yada. So this is very broad. But on to VRAM. So for VRAM, the CX16 has a 128K. At time of filming, you never know with the CX16, but the 128K seems pretty solid. And it's worth noting that it is port access only, but it does have dual of them. So you have dual port. The TurboGrafx 16, henceforth referred to as TG16, has 64K. It is also port access, but it has a DMA access engine. The MegaDrive, henceforth probably referred to as MD, I might change on that, I don't know, has 64K VRAM and again is port-based with DMA access. It should be noted that the MegaDrive does allow you to access during visible display, as does the CX16. The SNES also has 64K, it is port access, VBlank limited, and it has a DMA engine. The Amiga ECS, henceforth referred to as ECS, has 512K, plus you can expand. It is chip RAM only, so you don't get all of the RAM, but if you expand your chip RAM, it counts, and you have direct full access to it. CGA, you have 16K, and it is directly mapped into main memory. EGA, you baseline have 64K, it can be expanded, and you have direct access. VGA starts at 256K and can be expanded. A note for the next slide. Seeing as CX16 is made in the part of the blue country, which is the only country that exists, it only supports NTSC output, and hence all resolutions and things I quote are going to be NTSC based, and I'm going to ignore the red areas resolutions. It really helps keep the tables down. So, resolutions. The CX16 normally has 160 by 240, 320 by 480, and 640 by 480. But there's a scaler which doesn't even have to be a multiple of 2, and you can kind of scale it however you want through a large variety of ranges. The DG16 likewise is programmable and is thus variable. However, the standard we typically use or see is 256 by 239 or 336 by 239 with a 512 by 224 option. The MegaDrive has 320 by 224, 256 by 224, 320 by 448, and 256 by 448. See, the last two are interlace modes. And then it has overscan in addition. The SNES is 256 by 224 or interlace 256 by 448, and if you don't like it, tough. The ECS is 320 by 200, 640 by 200, and 320 by 400. 640 by 400, again as they're interlaced, and of course the Amigas have overscan. CGA, you have 160 by 100, 320 by 200, 640 by 200. EGA, 320 by 200, 640 by 200, and 640 by 350. Yeah. VGA is 320 by 200, 640 by 350, and 640 by 480. So basically the CX16 is more CGA to VGA than the traditional consoles. Unsurprisingly, because it's designed around the VGA output system and not television output. On to backgrounds. Caveat city to this one. So in the CX16 you have 2 layers. The TG16 only has 1 layer. The MegaDrive has 2 plus a fixed background, which I think is called the window. SNES has up to 4 layers. ECS gives you 2 in the dual playfield mode. CGA, EGA, and VGA only have 1. File size. CX16 and the SNES give you 8x8 and 16x16. The TG16, MegaDrive, CGA and EGA only give you 8x8. It's worth noting the CGA is fixed, you can't change the character set. VGA adds 9x16. Colors per tile. The CG16 supports 2, 4, 16 and 256 colors. The TG16 supports 16, that's it, as does the MegaDrive. CGA is 2, EGA is 16 and VGA is 16. And SNES is 4, 16 or 256, depending on its mode. Number of tiles, or sometimes called chars, depending on the particular machine. CX16 supports up to 8024. The TG16 supports 4096. The MegaDrive supports 1808. The SNES is again 1024, and CGA, EGA, and VGA are 256. Bitmap modes. The CX16 has bitmap support. The TG16 doesn't. The MegaDrive doesn't, but you can technically use its raw grunt to fake one. The SNES does have a bitmap mode, however it's limited to 11-bit color. ECS, CGA, EGA, and VGA of course do. Sprites, the big one. Pixels per line. CX16 supports up to 640 with asterisks and Greek letters abound. That's a technical theoretical maximum depending on your color depth and how things are designed. It changes, and it's not a straight linear operation, it's kind of variable. The TG16 and MegaDrive support up to 256. The SNES ekes out 16 more to push it to 272 pixels per line. The ECS is as many times as you can plex the 8 sprites across the horizontal line. Off you go. The CGA and EGA have 0, and the VGA supports 16 pixels per line. The CX16, like the SNES, has a total of 128 sprites. The MegaDrive has 80. The TGS16 has 64. The Amiga again is however many you can plex. CGA and EGA have 0 and VGA has 1. Sizes. So, basically the CX16 has 8, 16, 32 and 64, and you can combine it however you please. The TG16 supports 16, 32 and 64. You can combine it how you please. The MegaDrive supports 8, 16, 24 and 32, which you can combine how you please. The SNES supports 8, 16 and 32, and you can combine them pretty much how you want, but you can only pick 2 different sizes to use at the same time. So you can have 8x8s and 32x32s, but then you can't put a 16x16 on the screen at the same time. You can only pick 2. I mean, the Amiga, they're 16 wide and they're as tall as the screen, so you can have whatever height you want. CGA and EGA, it's 0x0, and the VGA cursor is 16x16. So the CX16 sprites really do pack a punch. 640, you're probably not going to run into too many problems with sprite flicker. That's probably even Neo Geo levels. And complete freedom with sizes. Colors. The CX16 is 12 bits for a total of 256 colors. The TG16 and MegaDrive are 9 bits, and the TG16 supports 482 colors. It actually has 512 just on sprites. The color 0 is always transparent, so sprites get 240 colors and then backgrounds get 256 colors. MegaDrive is 64 colors with 9 bits as before, and it has a shadow register, so you can kind of get more colors as you. It's kind of a half bright trick. The SNES has 15-bit color, except for in the aforementioned bitmap mode where it only has 11, with a total of 256 colors. For a total of 256 colors, while 128 are available for sprites, up to 256 are available for the backgrounds. ECS has 12-bit color, so ECS and the CX16 have the same color ranges, for a total of 32, plus there's half bright mode, which kind of gets you into 64, depending. And then there's the hold and modify mode. EGA is 4-bit, but it's fixed, and you have a fixed 16-color palette. EGA has a 6-bit palette, but has 16 colors. VGA takes the crown with 16-bit color for 256. Although honestly, 15-bit versus 16-bit, kind of neither here nor there. Miscellaneous. It's worth noting that the MegaDrive also has fixed panels. You can set an area to not be affected by the scroll. I think it's on both planes. And it has vertical scroll offsets, so each tile can be at a different scroll. You've seen that in it's how they do the moving platforms in Sonic the Hedgehog, for example. The SNES. Well, where do we begin with the SNES? There's 2 color windows, which can do Boolean algebra with each other. They can either affect a color, they can either scissor display. You have mode 7, you have all its so it can deal with the 3D transformation of it. It has transparency support with additive, subtractive, and half modes. There's a mosaic effect. It has HDMA effects. It's got per tile offset mode. It's got the 11-bit bitmap mode. I'm sure there's features I'm forgetting. The SNES just has little features packed everywhere. The ECS has a programmable blitter and copper, and they scream. So when it comes to bitmaps, nothing is going to touch the ECS. CGA and EGA are pretty plain Jane. The VGA, they decided to actually get their act together because they probably started to see what the Amiga was doing and added a barrel shifter and hardware scrolling. Luxury. Such luxury was the VGA era. Conclusions. We basically have a bitmap versus tile mode divide. The old MegaDrive versus the Amiga debate. In tile mode, SNES is a monster. It's just got features everywhere. It's got higher color depth, it's got more planes, it's got various transparency effects, it's got the windows, it's got color windows, it's got transformations, it's got mode 7, it's got a bitmap mode. You can't beat it. You just can't. The CX16 it's more MegaDrive levels. The MegaDrive has less colors, but more features on the tiles, whereas the CX16 is more colorful, but it doesn't have the fixed panels, doesn't have the backgrounds, doesn't have the fancy DMA engines, etc. Bitmaps. So the Amiga absolutely dominates. There is no question. Yeah. VGA has 256 colors, but the Amiga has a blitter and a copper. So the VGA catches up when you have a 386 or a 486 DX, 4100, so it's actually got enough grunt to push the thing. But until then, it doesn't. And even then, when you go back and you read reviews, say Lou of the Temptress or something like that, you see people say, well, the PC version's got 256 colors and the Amiga version's only got 32 colors, but I don't care. It's faster, everything moves smoother, and the music's better. But technically, the SNES is actually surprisingly no slouch. 11-bit color depth on a bitmap is pretty solid. And then you can do, the mode 7 is basically a bitmap, so you have mode 7, which then has all the 3D transformations on it as well. So the CS16, we have bitmap. It's a novelty, I suppose, is the way of putting it. It lacks features. We do not have the CPU grunt. You do get sprites, which helps, but it's port access and not really going to be that useful. What it will be useful for, and what we could probably expect, is the fixed background games. Things like International Karate or Bomb Jack, Pang, that sort of thing. We have a nice high detailed background and you have sprites moving around on top of it, because we have 128 sprites and pretty much flicker-free sprites. It's going to be great for those kind of games. But 3D plotting, not so much. We got lots of grunt to do the maths, but trying to draw and plot, you get in spam buffers, which kind of helps, but it's not going to be that great. So basically, games that require lots of decent bitmap performance, Doom, for example, probably not going to be that great. Something like, the Amiga's bitmap Power S, we have Populous or Setlist 2 or other isometric-based games. You can do it on a SNES, you can do it on a MegaDrive, you can fake it with tiles and sprites, but straight bitmap performance, probably not really. A flick screen bitmap game, something like Prince of Persia, for example, it'd be great. You'd be, you'd turn really fast. You wouldn't have that huge pause like you do with some versions. But tiles, we go into like scrolling games. Obviously, something like Fire and Ice, the Super Frog games, Magic Pockets, Gods. The CX16 is going to be better at it than, say, the Amiga versions. It's not going to be SNES good. You could get away with it being MegaDrive. You have more sprites in the MegaDrive, so you could actually probably fake most of a fixed panel with sprites anyway. But if you're saying, what is a CX top tier game going to look like? MegaDrive with a bit better color.